This is Groove Talk with FrogE Style.
Welcome to another episode of Groove Talk, everybody. On this episode, I'm joined by Mikaela.
Hello.
And she is part of the band Future Womb.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So I guess just to start, could you tell the audience a little bit about Future Womb?
Sure. All right. Future Womb, is a band. So on Instagram, I say our genre is psychedelic dark wave popera. This is my way of trying to encapsulate both the reality that I don't super understand genre and also that there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So there's some poppy elements. There's probably the popera being that I know I have some musical theater influences, at least in the vocal elements, just because that's my training. And that the rest is a bit of a mishmash of many different styles. So Future Womb is that, plus glitter, I guess.
Awesome. So I guess how did the band come together?
Well, I guess the story is I'm part of a theater collective called the Major Matt Mason Theater Collective, and every year we do a show in the spring, summer, and usually every year we also throw some sort of fundraising party. We always have bands at the fundraising party, and then one year we were a band short. I had some music I'd been writing. I had no concept of the amount of time it takes to workshop songs in order to have them ready for a show, so I said, oh yeah, I'm sure I could, pull together a set for next weekend. That's totally fine. And then Panic texted a bunch of my friends who I know are talented musicians, so I texted Jordan Moe and Michael D'Souza and Andrew Franks, all of the Ashley 100, and they all came to the rescue, and we workshopped 3 songs just in time for this fundraiser, and that was Future Womb's first show. Awesome. Yeah.
Then everybody just kind of decided to stick around and keep going with it then?
Andrew Franks is no longer drumming, but Andrew Ellergott took over. Super confusing. He basically was there to save the day for the one show. And then I did the proper help I need a drummer. I think that, every band has to do at some point or another.
Yeah.
So then Andrew Ellergott jumped in and saved the day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you said that you have a musical theater background?
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool, too.
So is starting a band something that you always kind of wanted to do, or?
Yeah. Actually, pretty much, I think grade, when you do grade 6 grad,
yeah,
and they want you to say what you're going to be when you grow up so that they can be like, oh, you're so cute, you don't know. Well, I distinctly remember saying that I wanted to be a singer on Broadway. So I had the big stage glamour dreams, and I knew I wanted to sing, but I didn't really know any of the other pieces except that I wanted it to be on a very important stage. So I've always loved singing. I had a karaoke machine growing up. I have these cassettes of me hosting a little radio show where I kidnap celebrities and impersonate their voices singing. So I've always loved singing, and I've always loved songwriting, but I never really felt confident with the collaboration element, which is pretty essential. So I did vocal lessons. I learned musical theater songs. I didn't actually do the musical theater productions. I just did the songs.
Yeah.
So I was always just one step away from fully launching into it. But it was always, the love was always there, I guess, to answer your question.
Yeah. So I guess what is it about musical theater that kind of draws you into it?
The drama, I think. Yeah. It's all so emotive. I love that, just the the idea that someone could be living a totally normal life and just have so much emotion that they need to burst into song. I relate to that on like a pretty meaningful level. And they're all storytelling, and it's just also some of the most like extreme vocals. So it's like really satisfying when you master like a really high note that's like really dramatic. I don't know what's one. Like, I know that I was really obsessed with Les Mis when I was a kid, and when I finally could sing like I Dreamed a Dream, I just thought I was God.
So I guess it's kind of fair to say that like music was always an important part in your life.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, like my mom forwarded me all our Christmas newsletters from my entire childhood the other day, and I read them today, and every year it was like, Mikaela loves music. It was always like the first thing, and then eventually it was like, and shopping. And then it just like devolved away from music for a while, but like from when I was 3 years old, it was there. So it was kind of cool to read that. I was like, confirmed. I do love this.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, because like for me personally, I don't even think I got like really into music until I was like a teenager. And I remember like exactly what it was. It was my dad gave me this AC/DC album.
Oh, nice.
And like everything I had been listening to that like before that was like boy bands and like Spice Girls and Prozac.
Nice.
And then I got
Relatable.
this AC/DC album, and I was like, oh, music. Like,
You're like, oh, there's more to this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not saying, not anything against the Spice Girls and Prozac, because I still.
Those are like part of the foundation of who I am.
Do you have any like standout bands that kind of did that for you, I guess, or?
Yeah, actually, I was just going through my CD collection the other day because I'm gearing up for a move, and every time I move, I'm like, hey, Mikaela, do you really need these CDs? But it's such a great way to see who influenced me during the time that CDs were a thing, because I'll have like a stack of maybe 10 Bright Eyes CDs, or like anything Conor Oberst. So clearly this was like a really strong influence, which is cool. I've listened to my own music and I wonder where, except for maybe the sad lyrics, but it must be just due to the fact that that's all I listened to for years. And Elliott Smith was also a really strong influence in those ages. This is like my angsty sad girl years, which never ended, but the teen years. So I feel like lyrically those two probably influenced me a great deal. As far as musically, the 90s like pop divas are, I just know, just based on the amount of vocal acrobatics that I instinctually want to do and then have to just quell just a little bit to not be obnoxious. Those are things that I absolutely picked up from, like, I don't know, like Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and Alicia Keys and Beyonce, and like those are absolutely strong influences. But as far as like recently, with actually like writing the music, I don't know. I feel like it's so vast. Lately, I've just been trying to take in as much as possible.
Okay.
Thank God for Spotify, because I'm just constantly looking on like the Discover lists and trying to get new music. Right now I'm really into the band Chai from Japan. They have this really awesome album called Pink that it just is a joyful romp through many genres. And they just love what they're doing, and you can feel that in the music, and they just have music that is both like happy and joyful and furious and just like just sounds like a bunch of middle fingers to the man, but also like warm fuzzy hugs. It's just like the greatest. I love that those things are all in there. It's great. I love them so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're all I'm listening to right now.
What's the band called again?
Chai.
Okay.
It's like all caps.
Okay.
I don't know
Yeah.
how you say that. Chai. Yeah.
I'll have to check it out. It sounds neat.
It's great.
So does the musical theater aspect kind of bleed into Future Moon's music then?
I think it must.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, I'm an actor as well as being a musician.
Yeah.
I also went to theater school as my post-secondary. So when I'm on a stage in front of a group of people, I inherently get kind of actory.
Yeah.
So I feel like just by nature of my training, the theatrical stuff comes out. Maybe I'm giving myself too much credit. I don't know. But like I try to embody how I felt when I wrote the song, whether or not it still holds. A lot of those things I'm like, I'd really like to let this go, but also if I'm going to be honoring this song and honoring who I was at that time, I'm just trying to like get in the zone, which most of the time means I'm just like deeply depressed on stage. But it's nice. Then you get people woo and stuff, and it feels a little better between songs.
Awesome. So do you ever, it sounds like a lot of the songs are maybe a little bit more personal.
Definitely.
Do you ever have troubles basically like playing them in front of a crowd and up on stage like that?
I don't super have a filter.
Yeah.
So, which has benefited me in songwriting, in that I just kind of overshare a lot of the time. So I don't know. Like I don't really feel like I just assume people can relate. And so even if I'm saying something that is, I don't know, like too honest for normal human interactions, just by being on stage for some reason, it just makes it easier because there's that like performance element, and there's like, I wear like crazy makeup and I wear like saucy outfits, and I just feel like I'm, I don't know, some like a superhero version of myself.
Yeah.
So I guess like it feels easier from that position, there you go, to be that honest. And then it also just feels like maybe people just assume that it's just an act.
Yeah.
And so it's easier. But then if they don't and they really relate and I took a risk, then like awesome.
Yeah.
And that's the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So do you find it like really like beneficial, kind of like letting go of things in that way, or?
Yeah, the catharsis is awesome, especially if I have had like a particularly bad week or like a particularly bad day. Having that outlet just kind of lined up at that time like I know that show is going to be like a good show.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to dig as deep to get that motivation. So I find it very helpful and healing in that. And when I there's been like longer stretches between shows now as we're more strategically booking, and it is harder to get through life when you don't have like an outlet all the time. But yeah, art is great for that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that like everybody needs some sort of outlet like that, some sort of creative outlet.
Yes.
Like it's just been like so beneficial in my own life, and I've seen like what it's done to like me and so many other artists and stuff. And because you talk to a lot of artists and a lot of musicians especially, and a lot of them are like, they have anxieties, they battle with depression, you know, like a lot of musicians are these broken people, but they're okay because they do music, you know? So it's, all my friends who don't do a creative thing, I like try to push them towards something. You
Totally.
know, like,
You're like, well, maybe if you just get it out in some way,
yeah,
you'll feel better.
like whatever it is too, whether it be music, painting, dancing, like just whatever it is, it's just getting that energy out is so beneficial, and it like affects your mood so drastically.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like basically one of the main reasons I found that I just like had to start doing music, is because I was like, acting is so purely like emoting, which is awesome, but professional acting is a whole lot of asking people to hire you and a whole lot of no.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of the time it just kind of feels like asking someone permission to be an artist, and 99% of the time the answer is no, and when you get a yes, it's so brief, and it's like a very high, but it's such a low afterwards. And when I just had acting, it was during a period where there wasn't a ton of film and television stuff for my demographic in Calgary. I was like, wow, if I don't get myself an outlet quick, we're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah.
Cause and I also do burlesque, and I also do visual art, and I create costumes, and all of these things have come from reaching a limit with another art form and being like, well, I still got feelings, so better find another one.
So I guess how does the songwriting process kind of work with Future Womb?
Yeah. Well, I can speak to our upcoming album, Baby Girl Galactic, because I feel like I had like this similar process for all those songs. I'll start with mine, and then I'll tell you when the band comes in.
Okay.
So pretty much every song on this particular album came out of some sort of like explosive emotional experience where I then had no other choice but to journal the crap out of it. And then eventually, when I was rereading my journal entries, be like, wow, that's actually like quite poignant. Like, good job, Mikaela. Let's highlight that line, and would kind of patch together all these things that I said, and then it was a terrible song because it wasn't like written as a song.
Yeah.
And then like I might then read that and then write a song based on like how it felt to reread that. So it's like a bit of a reflection. Or then maybe like some of the songs actually just were like straight journal entries with like a tiny couple tweaks here and there. But for the most part, I didn't really like ever change the words from like the original moment of emotional release.
Okay.
Which now that I'm releasing these songs out into the world feels like significantly more vulnerable than at the moment where I was like, yeah, it's a song. Like I sing it like it's a song and those are the lyrics. Like what's the big deal? And now I'm like, oh, I'm saying that, hey? Which is like an interesting experience. But then I took these songs and I would typically improv sing them, and because I would write them as poetry without any sort of melody, and then I would just kind of like that type of singing them to myself with a recording device, and then would listen back, and maybe there was like one line that wasn't total garbage, and then I would listen to the same recording like 30 times anyways, and it would like parts would get stuck in my head, and then I would workshop the instrumental part with that in my head, and eventually something came of it. I feel like this is so in-depth. So anyways, once I had my part, so either synth and vocals or ukulele and vocals, which would be like probably a couple months just to myself to make sure that I actually was confident about that. Then I'd take it to the guys. Some of the songs I like wrote up a chord sheet and like structure ideas and tried to be like very articulate about it. And that's because the first couple times I try to explain a song, I would basically talk unendingly, like you're experiencing now, and would say nothing in the process. And everyone would look at me with a bit of a blank stare. And then maybe like Jordan would chime in, and he would sort of say what I had said using like thousands of words in like 2 sentences. And it would be this, I'd be like, oh my God, thank you. I need you. Never leave me. Because this is one of my strengths is not explaining what's going on in my head out loud. So it has been a bit of a process, but I think I've maybe gotten a little better at it. But basically, I will stumble through explaining the emotional arc of what I want, or like how I know I want to feel when I hear it. And then these guys completely write their own parts, and maybe I'll be like, I want it to be like disco-y here or something, and they're like, cool. I'm like, and it's D7, like, I don't know. And then we just continue to workshop it and play, and something sticks, and the collaborative element then can like start to sink in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know if that was at all a good explanation.
No, definitely. That answers my question perfectly.
Very thoroughly.
I like it when my podcast guests talk a lot because
Oh, good. I do.
yeah, it makes it way easier for me.
Oh, great.
I don't like it when I like ask a question and somebody's just like, answer. And then they sit there like looking at me, waiting for me to ask another question. I'm like, no, like keep going, elaborate.
Okay, well, very good, because I will elaborate forever. So
So do you ever find it kind of difficult to let go of songs?
yeah, we've only had a couple that have just kind of slowly died.
Yeah.
But the first one, I remember being like, what? This happens? Like, I just was like, but they're all brilliant. Like, what do you mean? And everyone's just so gentle about it, which I deeply appreciate. Just being like, yeah, like, I don't know if this one's like super working. And I really resisted, but eventually it like kind of feels good to let go of the ones that aren't working, because I just felt like there was one in particular that I just kept reworking and eventually was like, maybe it just sucks. Like, maybe that's just the truth, and like I can just move on and work on new stuff that doesn't suck. And it was a great relief to give myself that permission. Yeah,
it definitely, it's hard to let go of something that you spent so much time on as well, you know? Like, it could be hours and hours or days even that you've spent on this thing, and then just to like let it go is tough.
Yeah, and like the song would have originally come from some sort of need to express a feeling, and the feeling still like existed, and I still want to like honor it, and like there's all the same, like the motivation to write this song is still there, and it has when I haven't honored it, I'm like, oh, like I feel bad towards like past me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sorry I couldn't do it. I'm sorry I couldn't do you right.
Yeah. So do you ever listen to songs at like different times in your life and then feel differently about those songs?
Yes. I mean, like, I'm pretty new.
Yeah.
So as far as songs that, like, even just the ones on this album, I feel very differently about than when I wrote them, like 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, depending on which song we're talking about.
Yeah.
But actually, now I'm thinking of a different thing. I did find some songs on my computer that I wrote when I was a teenager, like 17, 18. And they're, like, so sad. Like, like, they're, like, warning sign songs. Like, if my parents heard these, they'd be like, oh, my God, are you okay? Like, they're those songs. And when I listen to them now, there's enough of that detachment where I can actually, like, be kind of a critic and look at it from, like, a songwriting perspective and not, by acknowledging the shortcomings, feel like shame. Whereas the songs that have yet to be released that we're working on now, I have a harder time with that, like, detachment, because it's still fresh and it's like, I know exactly what the song is about.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, these songs from, like, 10 years ago, I'm like, I don't know why I thought this boy was the one, or like, you know, now it's like, oh, ha ha ha, your life was so simple, or something like that. And now, yeah, whereas maybe that's how I'll feel in, like, my 30s or my 40s. Maybe I'll look back at my, like, early to mid 20s album and be like, oh, girl, just wait, like, who knows?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it is, like, really, like, a cool way to, like, it's like a diary, but it's just so, it's like compressing, like, everything about who you are into one little bundle.
Yeah.
It's cool to have that little time capsule.
Yeah, and that's a cool way to look at it too. Is like it is a time capsule to the way that you were like feeling at that time, or like the emotions that were going through your head at that time and stuff like that. And it's like probably the coolest. Like a song is one of the coolest things to like encapsulate that. I guess like. So since you are a little bit like more new to the whole like band thing, I guess, is there anything that really surprised you that you weren't expecting about being in a band?
Very good question. I think I wasn't expecting how close I would get with my bandmates, which is, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, that's silly, because you're literally doing like, you're giving them your most intimate art and trusting them with it, and they're letting you like I just cannot, like, I'm also just honestly surprised that these guys are just like continually wanting to do stuff with me. I'm like, aren't I insufferable though? Like, I don't, I'm like, you like me? You like hanging out with me enough? You like when I like babble through a song and you have to decode my mind? Like, this is enjoyable because it's voluntary. Like, and I think like that's the part that maybe about this particular band that has continued to surprise me, is just that we work well together and that I play well with others at all. I was like, oh, I can do this. I'm not like total alien human. I can interact. I can do that. That's great. And yeah, and every time we workshop a new song, I am mesmerized by it. Even if I've been working on it for months and months on my own, as soon as it gets more fleshed out and we get these other perspectives, sometimes stuff that I'm just like, what, really? And then I listen to it more and I'm like, you're a fucking genius. Like, yes, this is exactly what we need. Oh my God. And then I love the song all over again and it renews it. And it's just, collaborating is so exciting. Yeah. And it's like you're making a little, I was going to say a baby, but that feels weird. But like, I guess, kind of, yeah.
It's like a creative baby, or maybe that's not the best word for it. But
it's like something about babies.
Something about babies. Insert word in front of.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess recording the album. Mm-hmm. You kind of mentioned it before we started here, but there's a lot of things that you didn't really expect you would have to think about. Mm-hmm. I guess, like, what's one of the biggest things that surprised you when thinking about an album that you weren't expecting?
Yeah, well, one of the things that is like an exciting discovery was just how much the mix, like the production side of things, completely changes and can like shape genre and mood and just like everything about the song. Because Taylor Cochrane is producing the album. He's my brother. He's with 36 and Jason Famous and the Fame and Fuckboy. And being produced by my brother, awesome, because we both speak that language that I don't think anyone else does. So it was very handy. And two, he had the patience to explain to me the process of producing right from like the beginning. So I got like a pretty hands-on experience. I got to be there for every single, well, not every single, but like for a lot of the tail end mixing sessions. Like the last day we were together for like 12 hours just tweaking by like decibels things, or just like, and I couldn't believe just like even tweaking something 1 decibel, you'd be like, that changes this like immensely. Like the impact of that is completely different, or like just, I loved it. I couldn't I couldn't believe that there's artists that make music and don't want to be there for all of that, because it's so exciting to see all the little tiny moves that make this final piece, and just how many tiny moves, like millions and like so many hours. I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah. And like you're right, very, very tiny moves, like the tiniest knob move, and it's like that made the entire thing sound completely different. Like,
yeah. And there's like so many things would be like, oh, I said like something under my breath in this song, let's like cut that, bring it in over here, put it down to like basically inaudible, but it does something. Like it was so, oh man, I loved the mixing process. I'm so sad that it's over. I almost just want to like give Taylor more notes just so I can go back and do it again. But yeah, it blew my mind how much like drum tone changes like the genre of the music. Maybe that's stuff that like people knew before, but I didn't know it. And then of course I went into like researching all different bands and why they make the choices they make, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Exactly. That's why this podcast like even exists. It's,
Oh, cool.
It's because I like talking to musicians about why they make the music that they do, like why they like, just to find exactly that, like, because there is infinite options of what you can do with music, which is crazy to think about, because there's like 7 notes or whatever that you're really playing off of, like of various tones and pitches, and like, so I mean, it's a pretty crazy the wide variety of music that we get from that.
Totally.
So I like to talk to people about like just what I guess makes them tick music wise, you know. So why is music important to you? Like, what does music do for you and in your life?
Yeah, well, I guess like music has always felt so personal, both as like as the artist like doing it, but even like as the listener, the who you listen to and like why you listen to who you listen to and like when you listen to it, it's all so intimate. Even like, you know, like on Spotify you can see like who your friends are listening to, and then you see that they're listening to someone that you would like never think that they listen to, and it's like, oh yeah, and that's like, it's like a little secret. Like, I don't know, it's just everyone has their own very specific special relationship with music, and like I don't know if I have personally met anyone who's like, I hate music. Like it's this seemingly, I'm sure those people exist, and that's totally fine, but it just feels like it's near universal. And like, you don't even, like, as much as lyrics mean a lot to me, that you don't need to even like understand the language of lyrics to connect with them, because there's that emotional power of just making sound with your voice. And it just is, I think human connection is so beautiful, and emotions are basically my favorite thing in the whole world. I literally went to school to study how to emote. Like, I really, really care about understanding human brains and like mental health and all these things, and I feel like music really captures that and can be really healing. I know that like there's some songs that I have listened to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, and they'll, even if I don't listen to them anymore, or even if I like stop listening to them for a while or never again, they serve as like they're like a relationship. They get you through something, or they're just, some songs are just like fun, and you're like, oh, that's my like guilty pleasure song. Like, I just think it's so cool that you can have relationships with art in that way.
And it's interesting how you can attach songs to certain emotions. Like, you definitely, when you're feeling sad, for example, you want to listen to sad songs. You don't want to listen to this upbeat, catchy song. Like, you want to like listen to a sad song. You want to like feel sad with this song, which is very interesting. And like songs have like you attach memories to them. Like, yeah, music is
crazy.
Yeah.
Like my favorite, I don't know, a story I just thought of that has to do with this.
Yeah.
In grade 12, I was not doing well in my math class, and I had to get a really good exam mark to feel good about my grade. So I studied really, really hard, and I exclusively listened to Paramore's album, the one with Misery Business on it. I'm assuming it's called Misery Business. It might not be. But I exclusively listened to this album on repeat for like a week while I studied. And I would be like, okay, these 3 songs are this unit. These 3 songs are this unit. And I just like really, really hoped that it was going to work. And I went into this exam and I like couldn't remember a formula. And I thought of Paramore lyrics and I remembered the formula. And then I got almost 100% on the exam. It was crazy. I was like, Paramore, thank you for my math mark. Like, I could not believe it. Ever since I've just been like, yo, music.
Yeah. Music, it's like unlocking the genius within.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the same with that AC/DC album that I got. Like, I can't listen to AC/DC anymore because, like, I just like listen to that album to death. But it takes me back to those like teenage years. It's kind of strange. It's like I just remember being in junior high and like listening to this, and it's again, music is just crazy.
Yeah, that's like the Fevers and Mirrors album by Bright Eyes.
Yeah.
I specifically listened to it at like a very sad point in life, and now when I listen to it, I'm just like, oh no, I can't. I'm done with that sad. I'm on to like a new sad. Like,
yeah. So you guys are playing the Big Winter Classic.
yeah, yay.
So I guess what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I love Big. I've been to Big every one of this iteration, I was listening to your podcast and learned that it's been around so much longer than I knew. So that was cool. But I just think it's one of the funnest festivals to attend. I love hopping between venues. I think that's so much fun. I love doing so in winter and running outside in like a t-shirt and just be like, rock and roll. And I love that it's a mashup of local acts that I love, local acts I haven't heard of yet, but I'm going to love, and these like crazy headliners and I love that it's eclectic. It's just like, it feels like being part of the cool kids when you're in this festival. Like, we got in, I was like, oh my god, I got invited to the coolest house party of the year. I can't wait to go. What am I gonna wear? Like, I was just immediately so excited. And it's just so exciting to be part of a festival where your friends are also performing, because then you can like go to each other's shows and you're all part of this. Like, it just feels like a moment that you're capturing. You just know something's gonna happen. It's one of those parties you just like know. It's gonna be great. Yeah. Also, last year everyone wore like the best outfits.
Really?
And I'm really big into looks. And I was just so impressed, and I was really like, come on guys, like wear your crazy outfits all the time. It's not just for festivals. And a lot of them did, and now I'm like, but we have to top last year. So I just can't wait to see what everyone wears.
Yeah, this will be my first time at Big, so
oh my god,
yeah,
just you wait.
I'm pretty excited. Do you have like maybe a favorite memory
from Big?
Yeah.
Ooh, I remember going into the gallery last year, which was like I believe a DIY venue, definitely not typically a venue, and it felt like we had somehow just like, not that I actually know what this experience is, but what I imagine going into some sort of like underground New York gallery club would feel like. I'm just gonna pretend that I've ever had that experience, but I just felt like we were transported, and I I'm trying to remember who was playing in this. I can't remember, but I just remember rounding the corner and looking at the stage, and just there was so many people, and it was wild. And it was just like, okay, so like on this side we're in this like very cool like fashiony, interesting, artsy people gallery, and round a corner and it's like an insane show. I was like, what is this festival? This is nuts. And that was like right off the top. So then it just continued. It was great.
Awesome. I guess so. Besides the music, what is maybe one of your favorite things about Big?
I think the community.
Yeah.
It like I was very much a audience human for many, many years, and never imagined I would then become a stage human. But this is a festival where it feels like there isn't that like divide between like performers and attendees. Like it just feels like it's just all of us just like hanging out.
Yeah.
And because I had felt that like audience human thing for so long, I still kind of have this like complex where even if like I'm on the bill of the festival, I'll still be like, no one knows who I am, no one cares who I am, like don't talk to anyone, don't assume anyone knows who you are unless you've like shook their hand 3 times and introduced yourself. But this festival, for whatever reason, I just like feel like I can walk up to someone who I've never exchanged words with, but maybe we've like liked each other's band posts once or something, and be like, hi, we're friends now. And that is a very big feat for me personally, to be able to be socially confident in that way. So I think that speaks to the vibe of the festival, that feels safe for like an odd person like me.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the great things about music festivals too, is it kind of like it is a safe space for like all of us. Well, I don't want to classify you, but at least me, I'm a weirdo. So.
I'm definitely a weirdo. If you don't call me a weirdo, I'm going to be like really offended. So.
Okay. So it's a safe space for us weirdos,
yes.
You know?
Yeah, it is.
We can all gather and we can all just be friends with each other.
Yeah, can let the weird hang out.
Yeah, exactly.
So nice, thank God. Can breathe out.
Yeah. It takes us like out of normal society, and like at least for 4 days we can just be us, like, and truly us, you know?
Yeah.
You don't have to put up any masks or anything like that, which is, it's freeing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I love that about festivals.
Mm-hmm. How does Big, I guess, compare to maybe some other festivals that you've been to?
Well, it's in the winter, which is, thank God, because if there wasn't Big now, I just would be so sad for all of I would just be like, well, I guess I don't leave the apartment ever again. But timing, that's like a cop-out answer. But how does it compare? I feel like it has like the world-class acts, but it's on the small stages. So I'm like, how long can this last? Like, part of me is like, we are part of a moment. This is a very special stage of Big, that we are able to, like, have these acts that you're like, holy shit, they were playing, really? And then be like, oh, I played that stage, like, 2 weeks ago. That's nuts. Or, like, I'm going to get to play that stage after that person's played that stage. And, like, I think that's something that it has, like, in common with SLED as well, is that, like, small stage, multi-venue. There's some like DIY venues, but no, Big just like has that. I think it's like that Rockin' for Dollars vibe. Yeah, it's like you go into Rockin' for Dollars, and it's that same, just like it's a safe space. You can just be a goofball. Everyone's gonna shake your hand eventually. Like it's like low pressure. Everyone's there to support you, and I think because of the connection between like Rockin' for Dollars and Big, or at least like some of the people involved in organizing it, that vibe just like bleeds into it, and it just, it feels like everyone gets to know each other through it, and it's not just like a presentation. It's like a workshop. I don't know. I went off there, but like, yeah, I feel like I really cannot praise Big enough for the culture that it's created.
Yeah. It's one of the things that honestly attracted me so much to the festival was that like community vibe. Like I talked to Adrian and I did the podcast with him, and what he was telling me, and like what Big aims to do, and like how they are bringing like all the aspects of like not just the music community, but it's like just Calgary's art community, you know, like they're bringing in so many different creative people, and that just really appealed to me. It's like that's what I would like to create more of in my life, you know, is community, and like just create those spaces where again we can all be our weird selves, you know.
Yeah, and I love that for the programming perspective of Big, that like it's so many different genres, and there's no like feeling that like there's no like big bands, like, you know, that you just like, you know, we're gonna play Big. Like it's just like, who's gonna play Big this year?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's so exciting because it leaves it accessible and also mysterious.
Yeah.
And that's so exciting that the festival can be whatever it's gonna be every year, and it's always, I just love that. I guess that's like a lot of music festivals also do this. I feel like I'm like, but we're talking about Big.
Yeah, true. But like it's not gonna bring in your huge headlining act or whatever, you know what I mean? That you're specifically going, I feel like with Big at least, you're going because you're going to Big. You're not going because you're going to see somebody. You're going to see everybody.
Right.
Which is different from some festivals, especially bigger festivals, obviously. It's like lots of people are going to see one specific band or something like that. Whereas with a festival like this, you're going for the community vibe. You're going because you just like music, you know? And
yeah.
What would you say to somebody to try and convince them to go to Big who maybe isn't really involved with, say, the local music scene?
Oh. Well, I mean, it's like the perfect time to get involved because it's like a crash course. You're like, well, if you don't know which bands to go to shows in the local music scene, go to like one day of Big and go see like 5 bands of different genres who are all like different little pockets of the music scene, and you'll have like an idea of what's out there, I guess. It's a sampling, if you will. Yeah, I think like festivals are a really good way to like broaden your music taste or just see what's out there. And like local festivals are no different. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. What does 2019 have in store for Future Womb?
2019 is a big year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the album is coming out, in theory. No, and it'll happen. It's a process.
Yeah.
But we have 2 singles that'll be released in winter/early spring. And then in the spring, well, the album will be out, which is crazy. Because I don't even know how long we've been working on it, but it's been at least 2 years, I'm pretty sure, if not more. Which is pretty standard, but at the beginning, I sure thought I would be the exception to the rule. So, the album is the big one, and for me, that's like a full-time job, at least emotionally and mentally, processing that reality, thinking about putting these songs out into the world is like really letting them go live their own lives, and other people can form attachments to them or hate them, both stressful. And they will no longer just belong to me, which is like a crazy thing to wrap a head around. So that, for sure. I'm also going to be relocating to Vancouver. So this obviously poses some logistical issues. So working those out. But then I guess the new music, the next album, once this one's out, there's only, I mean, once you've done one, you just you're addicted.
Yeah.
So it's like tattoos or all those other art forms.
Yeah.
So yeah, just on to the next thing, I guess. But yeah, 2019, Baby Girl Galactic, Future Whim's debut album. It'll be released.
Get it.
Yeah,
Get it.
it's gonna be crazy. I'm so excited.
Awesome. So is there any just kind of final things that you want to say before we close this out?
Oh, I don't know. I love Calgary. I love Big Winter Classic. I love my future BBs. It's oh yeah, shout out to Andrew Ellergott on drums, Jordan Moe on guitar, and Michael D'Souza on bass. They couldn't be here today, but they're just as much a part of this as I am. And they're great. Yeah. How do you close a podcast?
Well,
I guess that's not my job.
well, I thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you so much for wanting to talk to me. This is great.
This was lots of fun.
Thanks.
If you liked this episode of the podcast, why not leave a review? You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. For up-to-date information on the podcast, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can find us at FrogE Style Productions. That's Frog, the letter E, Style Productions. For more ways to support the show, visit fsproductions.ca.